We saw that, how quickly the overall advertising ecosystem was shifting to mobile from traditional medium like TV, print, radio, what we call programmatic advertising, right? Where all the media buying is completely automated. What's our product roadmap now? What's our product roadmap 2 years down the line? Which areas make sense to invest so that we are also building on our core capabilities and maybe some adjacencies, because we always also want to sort of build something that we can also win in.
Some of us friends were joking around that if you say some words to your phone 3-4 times, next thing that you'll see everywhere is, let's say, a football or shoes, right? So how protected is your data is something which there's a very blurry line there. Hi, welcome to the episode of InMobi on Tap. Today we are sitting down with Vasudha, CBO of InMobi. We'll try to understand her story and get insights into the interesting world of mobile advertising. Welcome to the episode, Vasudha. Let's maybe start with a hi to the audience and then we get deep dive into your journey.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here today. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
Great. So, Vasudha, let's start by understanding a little bit about your journey. How did it all start? How did you land up at this exciting opportunity of being the CBO of such a large company in India?
So I've been actually at InMobi for almost 13 years now. I was at McKinsey before this, so very non-traditional move from consulting into the startup world, really long time back. I think how I landed here was, I was looking for an interesting move out of consulting, because I wanted to get deeper in a sector, because I think during my consulting days I realized that I wanted to really go deep in a function or in a role, and I wasn't necessarily feeling completely sort of happy or satisfied with just consulting on projects and then moving on every 6 to 9 months. And somehow, Bangalore was the location of choice because of personal reasons. So yeah, I had a few of my friends from my MBA days who were already at InMobi and they had really good things to say. So I ended up speaking to the founders, and it was more gut based than anything else. But really liked the vibe, the kind of the technology powerhouse they were trying to build from India for the world. So just that vision, that ambition really resonated with me, and I thought, okay, let's give it a try. What's the worst that will happen, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So that's how I landed up here. And I think obviously back then in 2012. Mobile advertising was extremely new, because smartphones was just taking off. Android and iOS were new as ecosystems. Some of the big tech giants like Google and Meta and all were starting to get into that space. So it was extremely new, but still exciting, because there was an opportunity to learn so much, do so much at that stage. And yeah, I never thought at that time that I would end up being here for so long. But it's been an interesting journey.
Got it. No, so I was also a consultant before starting up, and incidentally, I was also with McKinsey. Spent about a couple of years there, and I can completely resonate with that feeling of sticking to one thing and really exploring the length and breadth of it. And for me, it happened to be in the space of finance. I happened to work with a lot of banks, NBFCs back then. But it's interesting to see how in those early stages where startup was not as big of a buzzword. In
Yeah.
fact, there was a lot of risk associated with a very early stage company, and you could take that plunge and join a company at that stage. And InMobi is one of the first unicorns in India as well, so
Right.
it has reached those heights over the years. But how did you get excited about this particular industry or the space of mobile advertising? How did that happen?
So I think when I joined, the mobile, like I said, right, it was just smartphones were taking off per se, and we were obviously, the great part was that very early on we were not just India focused. We were looking at global markets, and we had already started to see the potential in markets like the US and China, because they were obviously a little bit ahead in terms of just adoption, the way smartphones were taking off. And interestingly, just at that time, Google had done an acquisition of a mobile advertising company, AdMob. Meta had started getting into this space. So it seemed like, a sector which would hopefully, heat up and pick up eventually. But we were able to get a lot of positive signs and even, growth, because I think as early as like 2012 to 2015, in those years, we set up offices across the globe. So we had a presence already in US, Europe, China, Southeast Asia by that time. And we saw the potential, right? We saw that how quickly the overall advertising ecosystem was shifting to mobile from traditional mediums, right? Like TV, print, radio. All of these were getting replaced so quickly with digital. And within digital, we saw, how rapidly mobile was evolving. And even closer to, India, if you looked at markets like Southeast Asia or China, the mobile adoption was actually much faster because of, smartphone affordability being better. And then data prices also, became so much more affordable and so on. So we saw that within digital also, mobile share started increasing a lot. So I think taking that bet early on paid off. Obviously, it came with its risks, but it paid off in the medium term.
So you were able to use your consulting hat and figuring out where the opportunity lies, doing all your research, and then
Well, I
identifying.
I don't know so much about using my consulting hat, but I think what consulting helped me with, I would say those couple of years at McKinsey, it helped set a good foundation when it came to a couple of things, right? One was, I think, just looking at new problems, new industries with a with a perspective that you could learn it, you could do it, right? Because there it was like you didn't have the option, but I think it built that muscle of looking at new problems and new industries and thinking that you can figure this out, right? So I think that was, as they say, right, the problem solving mindset. I think it really helps build that. I think consulting early on. I think the other thing that it helps with is dealing with ambiguity, which comes in tons and loads with a startup. So I think that experience at consulting also helped to deal with new situations, new problems, dealing with ambiguity, not knowing like how some things would pan out. And I think third was probably even dealing with, I would say, because in consulting you are thrown into these I would say senior presence kind of situations very early on, right? You typically don't get that exposure in other industries. And I think that helped me in my early time because I ended up working directly with the founders from day one. And so that ability to work with senior folks at a founder level in the early days, I think that also came from some of the consulting training. And it helped me at InMovie because I was able to get a lot of exposure to, a lot of the sort of core thinking, core strategy, core decision making very early on, right? Which helped me then, find my own, interests, opportunities, and path later on.
Got it. You mentioned that there is an evolution that has happened, and I'm sure back when you would have joined 13 years ago compared to now, what you had seen from an external perspective after entering the industry and building in it for over a decade, there is a lot of change that you would have seen, many new trends coming and going. Can you help us understand what were the initial insights when you entered the industry and how has it evolved? What are some of the three striking insights for you?
I think absolutely right. Like 13 years is a very very long time, right? Especially for an industry like this, right, where there's something new actually every 6 months, right? I don't even think this is an industry where there's a cycle of 2 3 years for a new change or a big shift. So I think the first shift, like when I got in, was the whole sort of transition that was happening from feature phones to smartphones. And then people actually starting to think of smartphones as a medium where they can reach their user, right? Like earlier they were reaching their users on TV or newspapers, starting to think that mobile is even a medium where I can connect with my user if I'm a brand or if I'm a marketeer, right? So that was obviously a big shift, and that was happening globally and happening very fast, right? So that time, I mean, apps were becoming huge, right? I mean, there were like maybe a few 100,000 apps on the Play Store and App Store at that time. Now there are millions of apps, right? So the consumption on apps obviously has exploded in the last decade. And so, the ability of brands, the ability of marketeers to reach their users on these apps has gone up significantly, right? But I think what came with it was that earlier there, like we were saying, there was also, they had the users' time, they had the users' attention. But as these apps exploded, right, users' attention spans, the time that a brand could get with the user drastically reduced. So brands had to innovate, right? Brands had to find better ways to connect with the user in the little time that they had, right? So I think one big evolution that we saw is in the way brands connect with users. So earlier, it would be a lot of, static ads, a lot of, those small kind of, what we call banners in our industry that you would see on an app or, on a website even. That evolved to video, right? Because video consumption started picking up a lot. So brands also realized that connecting with their users through video ads was, a big so a big shift happened around that, maybe in 2015-16 time frame. So if you were playing a game, you would see a rewarded video, as we call it, where in a game break you would see a video ad, or if you were watching some show, right, you would see a small sort of video ad before or after. So this was all an evolution that happened to catch the consumer's attention from the brand side. I think the other big shift which has happened is in the way media is bought. Because if you see in the old sort of traditional media world, right, of print or of television, the media buying was very, very, what we say is manual, right? Like a brand will say, okay, I want to reach these users, spend so much money, go to an agency. The agency will then find the right publishers to spend, or broadcasters to spend the money on, and then finally you reach your user. All of that became completely automated in the mobile world, right? So we completely transitioned from the manual world to what we call programmatic advertising, right? Where all the media buying is completely automated, right? The bids that you place, the users that you reach, the target audience, all of that, right? The entire targeting, the optimization, everything has sort of become automated. And that shift has also improved efficiency tremendously, right, of the whole media buying ecosystem in the mobile space. So that was a big, big shift which happened. And I think now, of course, the big shift is AI, right? And I mean, you can't get away from it. And that's impacted, again, advertising in a big way, because AI has such a big role to play in creatives, right? The content bits. So earlier, people were spending, or brands were spending so much money in content generation or, creative generation. Now, all of that has shrunk in terms of, time spent in the number of iterations they can do. So AI, I think, will shape sort of the next big shift that we will see in the next year or so. So I think every few months we do see some shift. Right now, data privacy and regulations are changing so much, so that's causing a big shift in this industry, because ultimately users data and how you target and reach a user is core to this industry, and all the regulations around that are changing. I mean, India released the latest regulation, in fact, yesterday, around data privacy and how users data should be handled. So all of these things, I would say, especially I think AI and data privacy will really shape the way we look at this sector in the years to come.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned AI, because back when we were in B school, there was one of this case study in which an interesting perspective came. And this was, I think, 4 or 5 years back, where they were talking about how AI will actually change the whole space of advertising, because till now the way ads are being developed or designed is to appeal to a human mind, and they're subconscious to a great extent, and AI is technically going to change the intelligence altogether, right? So now you're not appealing to a human mind altogether, you're appealing to a very rational sort of technology which doesn't have too many emotions to deal with, and therefore the way decisions will be made will be very different, and the way ads have to be designed have to be completely different. So obviously it's not going to happen anytime soon, but that's also like one stretch in which people are imagining how AI is going to change how advertising sort of evolves going forward. So
Yeah.
that will be an interesting era to live in.
Absolutely. I mean, AI has already evolved to the extent that ads can be completely personalized. So an ad that I see or vis-a-vis what you see could be completely different based on our preferences, our choices, our history, all of that. So yeah, once it moves to the synthetic humans, as they say, then it will absolutely be different as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in your journey so far within Mobi, you would have had the opportunity of working with various brands of different scale, designing different sorts of campaigns for them, helping them reach various market segments, different type of TGs. Can you give us 2 or 3 examples that come to your mind where you have seen a significant impact of the campaigns with mobile advertising that they did, and how that sort of changed the way in which their performance sort of improved?
I think maybe a few that I mean I can think of some recent ones, right? I think one is around IPL in India is big, right? So there's a lot of different sort of innovation and creativity that goes into a lot of the IPL campaigns. So we did something with Sprite. I think that was last year. Yeah. So where they use the whole IPL experience, but actually converted it to a Sprite Premier League kind of an experience, where it was a whole sort of gamified experience for the user, using Glance as the platform, and within Glance they were able to sort of for every user, right, create like a mini cricket game, and then a whole sort of stadium experience, right, like a virtual experience on the mobile phone within Glance. And then the call to action, interestingly, also, like whenever the user was tired or wanted to take a break, they could go sort of to the Sprite online store and buy a Sprite, or they could get some coupons which they could also sort of use offline and so on. So very interesting, in which they sort of immersed the user in the experience, because obviously it was targeted towards cricket fans and match moments, and when people are sitting and watching the match, but also bringing the brand into that experience and actually helping them garner the right reach, the right kind of even transactions and so on. So that was a very interesting one which comes to mind, because it's good to see the way brands are bringing in the power of mobile technology, and using real world sporting events, and then sort of bringing that together. I think another one which is from Indonesia, I can maybe talk about, because that was something we did for Ramadan in Indonesia last year, was with one of the big food brands there, called Indo Foods. So there the tradition is, obviously when people break their fast in the evening, right? There's specific recipes which people sort of really go for, especially like sweet recipes and dessert recipes and so on. So we created a cooking show, with the brand, using their product, and again sort of featured it as a live show on Glance. And then again, if people were sort of watching that, and it was targeted to people at that moment, right, when people broke their fast in the evening. So that's the power of mobile, right, that you can also do a time based kind of targeting to the audience. And then again, people could go buy the ingredients and products and sort of cook those things on their own. So these are two recent ones, which were also, topical, brought in, the sort of the events and sporting themes, which are very common, and then the power of mobile to really bring some of this to life.
Got it. I will just shift gear here and would love to focus a little more on the inside journey, for you who's building these products and coming up with different innovation at InMobi. Can you walk us through the thought process that goes behind identifying what next to launch, and how do you measure the success of all of these launches?
So I think, see, for anything new, there are two or three things that typically, go in launching it. I mean, one is obviously we have to keep a pulse on what's happening in the market, right? In terms of course, consumer adoption of different technologies, but also, how are brands and marketeers sort of adopting things. So there's always a sort of just you can say a market research element that is always on. And for us, we have to do it across markets, because every market's pulse is a little bit different, right? The West compared to the East. Sometimes, you will also see certain technologies will evolve faster in the West. But in, markets like India or China or Southeast Asia, the user behavior is very different. So we have to do sort of a fair job both on the market research, and also seeing what user patterns and so on are. So there's a big element of that which, our marketing team, our product teams do in terms of research, and bring that. And that's done both through secondary research, primary interviews, right? All of those kind of things. Then there is our own, sort of evolution of technologies that's, happening. That, what's our product roadmap now? What's our product roadmap 2 years down the line? Which areas make sense to, invest, so that we are also building on our core capabilities, and maybe some adjacencies, because we always also want to sort of build something that we can also win in, right? Because ultimately it's also a competitive market, right? We compete with like big tech giants when it comes to mobile advertising as a space. So we've always sort of been about mobile, right? And chosen that as our, you can say, dominant strategy. And then, getting into adjacent ones. So, like, exploring connected TV, for example, or, exploring mobile web and so on, right? So basically playing to your strengths, and then exploring adjacent areas so that you're still able to win in the areas that you choose. So really bringing these two things together, what is your product strength, what is your dominant strategy, with the market research and the consumer research elements, and bringing that together. And then I think we also always look for what are unique ways then to take things to market, because I think if you just sort of copy paste the go to market that's happening around, you may not always succeed with that.
Can you give an example of that?
So, for example, with Glance, right? We chose that our distribution path is with the OEM manufacturers and with the telcos. So,
Oh,
Glance does not come as an app on the App Store. You can only access Glance if it is bundled with one of the devices where we have a partnership, with one of the OEM manufacturers or with one of the telcos. So there was a reason that for choosing that, so that our distribution strategy is unique, right, compared to a lot of other consumer apps which may be in the market. So
got
that's
it.
just one example, but many such things, right, which give you some uniqueness, and also keep a balance of allowing you to go to market and sort of sustain profitably, because I think that's also something which has been one sort of core thing to us in the last many years now, that we want to scale, but we also want to scale profitably
Right.
as an organization.
Is there any
Insight
other
Lens.
product which you have seen closely coming to launch, and what sort of insights led to that?
I mean, I can talk about some of the markets, right? Like specific market
Yeah.
launches, and how we thought about some of the market launches. So on the Mobi side, for example, right, we launched programmatic advertising,
Yeah.
which was supposed to be big, but we had not yet sort of ventured into it. So we had a path to either do that organically or do that inorganically. And there's always that debate, right, that do you build internally, do you go
Yeah.
and sort of partner, or do you acquire? What's the right path? And I think a unique path that we chose was that we decided first to partner, right?
Okay.
So we decided that we will partner, because building may take a lot of time, and then you will lose sort of the window that technology was dominant in. So we decided to partner, and we partnered for the first sort of 2 years, which gave us like a solid foundation in that business, and helped us sort of leapfrog and get ahead, and especially in the market like the US, where it takes time, right, to build, to grow, and then to scale the business. So the first 2 years we sort of partnered, really understood the business, really took to market everything, established some revenue base, and then we decided, okay, now let's invest in building, because we understand this business, we have a revenue foundation, and that gave us, you can say, the confidence to then say, okay, let's start building on our own, right?
Right.
So that was one approach where we partnered and then decided to build when it came to our programmatic platforms. There have been other instances, like in the Glance case, where we just decided to go build on our own, because it was something which was very unique, right? When we started with lock screen back in 2018 or 19, it was not something that anyone else was doing, and ideally we wanted to be the first to market. So in that situation, we just decided to take the plunge and build.
Okay.
So I think varying approaches, right, to different parts of the business, depending on the maturity of that, that market, and the evolution of that business itself.
Got it. Got it. Since InMobi is a global brand, I'm sure you would have had the fortune of working across different geographies, understanding the nuances of specific markets. Basis the experience that you've had and the geographies that you've handled, what sort of differences have you found in the way people consume content, the way ads are positioned, and essentially the way your whole positioning varies from geography to geography?
I think definitely there is, a difference, of course, in consumer behavior, right?
Yeah.
So, if you look at, India, Southeast Asia, China, these are actually in some ways mobile first economies,
Hmm.
right? India, if you look at, in fact, India has almost skipped the desktop generation altogether, right? We sort of jumped from television to mobile.
Yeah.
So, the way, especially I think when it came to content consumption on video, we saw that, in markets like India and Southeast Asia and China, it was actually much, much ahead, right? The video consumption in these markets. And so we had to actually solve for some of our things around video advertising very, very, sort of quickly in some of these markets because we saw that, users were like, it was the first screen for users. Mobile was the first screen.
Yes.
They were actually even just skipping television for a lot of households. Even television was not the dominant screen. So I think that was, something from a consumer behavior lens which was different. But then in markets like US, like iOS is a predominant operating system, right? Whereas in this part, Android is, and therefore, the way you solve for some of these from just a mobile advertising lens, there are different nuances to these. So, for example, when in I think 2020, Apple made a lot of changes around data and privacy in the whole iOS ecosystem, right? Around they basically removed the user ID, which identifies users on
Hmm.
iOS. And that was a big, big shift when it came to mobile advertising because if you don't have the ID, how are you going to reach the user, right? So we had to, again, very rapidly evolve our product around that shift. And that was a very iOS based shift. So it was, more dominant in US and Europe, markets like even Japan and Australia, where, almost 65% of the ecosystem was, iOS heavy. So a lot of these shifts sometimes are, very geography dependent. And the way the product evolves has to be, very fast for certain geographies vis-a-vis others. Similarly, like around, cookies. Google's been talking about deprecating cookies for a while now. That impacts everything on the mobile website because again, you can't identify a user on mobile web. How are you going to target them? But that's something that probably impacts other players more and didn't impact us more because we were more an app-based player. So we were able to, evolve slowly or, sort of follow on that front. We didn't have to sort of jump the gun on that one. So, different kind of trends which require a different kind of, you can say, a solution or product in different markets. But for sure, I mean, operating in sort of 100 plus countries like we do, it does keep you on your toes in terms of the way you have to build your product roadmap.
Absolutely. You briefly also mentioned about data privacy and the whole regulatory aspect of the way things are now spreading and expanding. What's your take on currently the sort of norms that exist? Are they enough? Where do you see gaps, if any, and what can be done to plug them?
I think, see, every country has released its version of, data privacy when it comes to users, and I think it's a step in the right direction because it gives you can say, the power back to user when it comes to their data. Users knowing that they are opting in or opting out of sharing their data. Users, giving consent if their data is to be used. So I think all of those things are in the right direction, right? Children being exempted or not being targeted, right? So children's data being more secure when it comes to data privacy. So I think all of these norms that different countries have come up, different versions of sort of the same baseline. I think these are good things from a user lens. Obviously, it then puts, you can say, the onus on platforms, on brands to then figure out how do you still make sure that you're able to reach your target user, right, without sort of flouting these data privacy regulations. And I think there's a lot of work happening on that front. I don't think there is a final solution, so to say, when it comes to the advertising world. I think everyone has different versions of their solution. But I would say that at least I think it's a step in the right direction for the overall industry, because there have been so many instances over the years of data leakage, data sort of just showing up anywhere and so on. So I think from that lens, it's good that governments are bringing the user at the center when it comes to these regulations.
But do you see that there is some gap in the implementation of these policies? Because just today, some of us friends were joking around that if you say some words to your phone 3 4 times, next thing that you'll see everywhere is, let's say, a football or shoes, right? So privacy, or how protected is your data, is something which is, there's a very blurry line there, right? We cannot really rely on anything, any platform, and it's become a joke amongst everybody. So where is the gap in terms of implementation? If these policies exist, why are they not being implemented? Where do we see the gap there?
I think the implementation is, for sure, I would say a challenge right now, and it is evolving, because if you look at most of these platforms, right, when you sign up to use any of these, platforms or devices or operating systems, as a user, you're signing up to a generic terms and conditions, which probably allow them to use this data for all use cases, which would include advertising. Which is why it feels like there is this misuse happening, or that you don't know where your data is going. But I think what these regulations are pushing for is that the user should be able to give their consent for every use case that their data is used for, and the user also has the right to have their data deleted if they ask for it. But there will again be an angle of both user awareness around it, because the user may not know that they can do that. And then again, implementation, right? What's the way for the user to get this done? So I think it will evolve. And that is why I feel that, some of these regulations are a step in the right direction. They're not 100% today, but I think it will get there in a few years, is what I would say.
I think that'll require brands to rethink a lot of
Rethink
things.
a lot of their,
Yes.
the way they target, the way they
Yes.
use user data, all of those things.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
But it's inevitable. I think it's going to
Yeah.
happen sooner
Yeah.
or later. So great. This was lovely talking to you and getting all these interesting insights about the mobile advertising space. Any last words before we wrap it up?
No, I would say, I think it's an exciting time for the industry. Definitely, like, with the advent of AI, how data privacy is changing, and how users are changing on, almost a daily, weekly basis. I think this industry continues to be, as exciting as ever. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you once again. Thanks for taking time out. That was it for today's episode. We'll catch you in the next one. Till then, take care. Bye bye.